Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into data governance.
Ooh, exciting.
It is, right? And specifically, what's happening over in Singapore.
Okay.
So buckle up because the Monetary Authority of Singapore, or MAS,
Right.
just released some guidelines that are causing like waves in the financial world.
Wow, really making a splash.
They are. And we've got two really great sources to kind of walk us through this whole thing.
Okay, cool.
So first, an article from Regulation Asia, and this one's great because it really focuses on the human side of these new regulations.
The human side, okay.
Yeah, like what does this actually mean for the people working in these institutions?
Right.
And then we've got a paper from Deloitte, which gets into like the nitty-gritty
practical stuff.
Exactly, like how do companies actually put these guidelines into practice? So by the end of this, you'll understand how these guidelines are changing the game for financial institutions and why it matters to all of us, even if we aren't, data experts ourselves.
Love it. A data deep dive for everyone.
Exactly. And we'll uncover some surprising trends, too, including how some folks are now facing personal liability if things go wrong.
Oh, wow. Okay, getting serious.
Yeah, it's definitely a shift. So maybe you can kick us off. What are we seeing globally when it comes to data these days?
Well, it's really fascinating. There's definitely a global push for more ethical data practices, and MAS is right at the forefront. These guidelines, they aren't just about protecting markets anymore. It's about protecting customers, too.
That's a good point.
And the really interesting thing, they really shine a spotlight on the Chief Data Officer, or CDO, like never before.
The CDO.
Yeah.
And that's actually something that the Regulation Asia article points out, that like not every financial institution even has a CDO yet. Only about 60% globally. So you've got this super important role with like potentially huge consequences if something goes wrong.
Right.
But like not everyone is prepared for it.
Wow. Talk about pressure.
Right. And those responsibilities, they're really clear in the MAS guidelines.
Okay.
For example, one of the 5 key outcomes they have is that senior managers, including the CDO, are now personally accountable for data breaches or misconduct. It's not just the company that's on the hook anymore.
That's a big change.
It is.
Yeah.
So it's not just like hefty fines for the organization anymore.
Yeah.
Individual careers are at stake. I can see why the demand for like data talent is through the roof.
Definitely.
But maybe let's step back for a second
Sure.
before we get too deep into the CDO hot seat.
Yeah.
Why are these guidelines even necessary? Like why is everyone so focused on data all of a sudden?
Well, I think you have to think about how much data is involved in finance these days. Everything, right? From like digital banking and personalized customer experience to, managing risk and complying with all these regulations.
A lot.
Data isn't just a back office function anymore. It's like the heart of the operation.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So, okay, data is essential, and these guidelines aim to make sure it's, handled responsibly.
Right.
The Deloitte paper actually has a great framework for how companies can implement these guidelines.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They break it down into 4 key pillars.
Okay.
Starting with board and senior management oversight.
Right. So leadership is absolutely key here. It's not enough to just have a CDO. The whole leadership team needs to be on board.
Totally.
And really championing a data-savvy culture.
Yeah. And the pillar number 2 is all about having a dedicated data management organization.
Okay.
And Deloitte says this should include a central data management office, or DMO.
Okay, the DMO.
Yeah, this is like the engine room for all things data governance.
Gotcha. So what do they do?
Well, they're responsible for like developing the policies, the standards, the procedures. Think of them as like the architects of the data governance framework.
Okay, making sure everything's aligned.
Exactly, with those MAS guidelines we talked about.
Right.
Then we've got pillar number 3, data quality management and controls.
Okay.
And this isn't just about reacting when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
It's about having systems in place to ensure data quality, like throughout the whole life cycle.
So it's about being proactive, not reactive. It's like preventative health care for your data.
Loves that analogy.
You need checkups, you need regular monitoring, you need a plan in place if things start to go south.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the 4th pillar.
Okay.
Which is all about what happens when data goes wrong.
Uh-huh.
So data issue identification and escalation.
Got it.
Deloitte really emphasizes the need for clear escalation criteria, action plans, and reporting,
Yeah.
to ensure issues are addressed quickly.
Like having a fire drill for your
Yeah.
data. You need to know who to contact, what steps to take, how to contain the damage.
Exactly.
And one tool that can be incredibly helpful here is data lineage.
Data lineage, now that sounds familiar. Can you give me a refresher? What is that exactly?
Yeah.
And how does it help when things go wrong?
Sure, yeah. Think of data lineage like a breadcrumb trail for your data. It tells you where the data came from, how it's been transformed, and where it's going. And this is key for identifying the root cause of a problem, like a data breach, a quality issue, and figuring out how to fix it.
So it's like having a detective's toolkit for your data.
Exactly.
You can trace the problem back to its origin and figure out where the process broke down.
Ooh.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Deloitte actually highlights some banks that are using these centralized systems to track data issues.
Oh, wow.
And visualize the lineage in real time. It's like having a data control center where you can see everything that's happening.
That's pretty amazing.
Right. Okay. So we've got these 4 pillars for effective data governance.
Yeah.
And tools like data lineage can help us troubleshoot problems.
Right.
But what about data quality issues that, crop up before things go seriously wrong?
Yeah.
How do we prevent those?
Well, that's where having those robust data quality management controls comes into play. And, Deloitte found that a lot of organizations, they struggle with inconsistent understandings of data quality across different departments.
Oh, like different definitions for things?
Yeah, exactly. It's like everyone's speaking a different language.
Oh, I can see how that would lead to a lot of, miscommunication and errors.
Exactly.
So what's the solution?
Well, it's all about establishing those clear data quality standards and definitions that are understood and applied consistently across the entire organization.
The whole organization, okay.
That might involve creating a data dictionary, providing training programs, establishing clear communication channels.
Keep everyone on the same page.
Exactly.
So it's about, building a shared data language.
Yes.
And making sure everyone is fluent.
Exactly.
Makes sense. But there's another potential pitfall that Deloitte mentioned, and it's probably something that exists in every organization, regardless of industry.
What's that?
End user computing, or EUCs.
Ah, yes, EUC.
Those spreadsheets.
The spreadsheets, the databases.
Little applications that people create and use outside the official IT systems. Right, exactly.
They can be a real headache for data governance.
So how do we manage those without, stifling creativity and innovation?
Right, that's the balance.
Because they're not going away.
Yeah, no, they aren't going anywhere.
So,
well, what Deloitte recommends is implementing controls to manage those EUCs.
Okay.
Like conducting risk assessments, putting access controls in place, and scheduling periodic reviews. Because they actually found that some institutions were using high-risk EUCs even after they were supposed to be retired.
Oh, wow. That's a little scary.
Yeah, it's like driving a car with bulb tires and hoping for the best.
Yeah, not a good idea.
No. So having a clear policy on EUCs and making sure everyone understands the risks
makes sense.
Is really critical.
Okay. But let's move on to another important aspect of data governance that Deloitte highlights.
Okay.
Which is it's the importance of incentivizing the right behavior when it comes to data.
Oh, interesting.
So it's not just about punishment when something goes wrong. It's about, rewarding and encouraging good data practices from the start.
Precisely. It's about fostering that data culture where everyone understands the value of good data.
Yeah.
And is motivated to do the right thing. That's a much more sustainable approach than just relying on fear.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like the difference between, forcing someone to follow the rules versus them wanting to do the right thing because they get it.
Exactly.
So we've talked a lot about these MAS guidelines and how to implement them effectively.
Right.
But there's another set of principles that's highly relevant here, especially for our listeners in the finance world.
Okay.
BCBS 239.
Yes. BCBS 239.
So for those who may not be familiar.
It's a set of principles issued by the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision.
Okay.
And it's all about making sure that banks have the right data at the right time to make informed decisions about risk.
So it's like data governance, but but specifically for risk management.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is that the themes of BCBS 239, they directly echo what we've been talking about this whole time.
Yeah.
Data governance, data documentation, and data quality management.
Okay, so it's really about connecting the dots between data governance as a broader concept and its specific application in risk management.
Exactly.
I'm curious, what does BCBS 239 have to say about data documentation?
Okay, well, imagine trying to assess a bank's risk profile without knowing where their data came from, how it was calculated, or what it actually means.
Yeah.
That's where data documentation comes in.
It provides that all-important context and transparency.
So it's like having a detailed map of the data landscape.
Exactly.
Which is crucial for navigating the complex world of, financial risk.
It is.
Makes sense. And lastly, what does BCBS 239 emphasize when it comes to data quality management?
Well, it stresses the importance of establishing data quality controls, monitoring data quality metrics, and having processes in place to fix any data quality issues.
Got it.
It's all about ensuring that the data used for risk management is accurate, complete, and timely.
Right, because, risk decisions are only as good as the data they're based on.
Exactly. Bad data can lead to bad decisions, which can have serious consequences, especially in finance.
For sure. But did Deloitte observe any areas for improvement when they were, assessing banks against these BCBS 239 principles?
They did. Interestingly, they found some shortcomings in areas like the independence of validation functions, the comprehensiveness of data lineage, and the timeliness of data issue remediation. So even though BCBS 239 has been around for a while, there's still work to be done.
Yeah.
It sounds like data governance is an ongoing journey.
Absolutely. It's a continuous process of improvement and adaptation.
Speaking of adaptation, the Regulation Asia article mentions some interesting tech tools that can help organizations, with these data governance challenges.
Oh, yeah. The tools are super important.
Tell me more.
Well, think about data catalogs, which provide a centralized inventory of all your data assets, or data lineage tools, which we've already talked about.
Right.
There are also data quality monitoring tools that can automatically flag potential issues, and data governance platforms that help organizations manage their whole program.
So instead of relying on, spreadsheets?
Yeah, manual processes.
It can be so error-prone.
Time-consuming.
You can leverage technology to, streamline things.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Deloitte specifically recommends tools that support metadata cataloging, creating business glossaries, and tracking data lineage.
Got it.
They see those as really essential.
It sounds like tech can play a key role in helping organizations meet these new data governance standards.
Absolutely.
And build a stronger data culture.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I remember Deloitte also mentioned a framework for measuring data management maturity.
Oh, you're thinking of the EDM Council's DSANG framework.
That's it.
It's a really comprehensive model that helps organizations assess their data management capabilities and pinpoint areas for improvement.
Got it.
It covers everything, from data governance and data quality to data architecture and data security.
So it's like a roadmap for building a mature data management program.
Exactly.
Now, I'm sensing a theme here.
What's that?
Everything we've talked about, the MAS guidelines, the Deloitte recommendations, even BCBS 239. Yeah. It's all about establishing a solid foundation for managing data effectively and responsibly.
Right.
It's not just about checking boxes.
Yeah.
It's about building that data culture that permeates the entire organization.
You hit the nail on the head. Data governance isn't just a compliance headache.
Right.
It's about building trust, managing risk, and ultimately making better use of data to drive business value.
Well said.
Welcome back to our deep dive on data governance.
So we've covered a lot of ground so far, from those pretty intense MAS guidelines in Singapore to those practical frameworks.
Right.
But before we wrap up, I'm really curious to hear about that case study you mentioned.
Oh, yeah. This one's a good one. Deloitte actually highlighted a situation where a bank had a major data quality issue.
Oh.
Yeah, and it could have been totally avoided with, better data governance practices.
Ooh, a real-world example.
Yeah, a real-world example. So picture this. A bank's using customer data to, assess loan eligibility.
Okay.
Pretty standard, right.
Yeah.
But here's the catch. Different departments within the bank had different definitions of what high income meant.
Wait, so one department might consider someone a high earner if they made like over $100,000, while another department might set the bar at $250,000.
Exactly. Talk about a recipe for inconsistency.
Yeah, that's a mess.
And to make matters worse, no one had really documented these different definitions or established like a single source of truth for this, crucial data point.
Yikes. So what happened? Did they end up giving loans to people who couldn't actually afford them?
Well, luckily, the bank caught the issue before it got to that point.
Okay.
But it definitely caused a lot of headaches.
Yeah.
Wasted time, wasted resources. They had to go back and, reconcile all those different data sets, clean up all the inconsistencies.
Ugh, so much work.
And then update their systems to make sure everyone's using the same definition of high income.
That sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It was.
I can only imagine, the frustration of everyone involved.
Yeah.
Seems like such a simple thing, defining high income. But without, clear data governance, it turned into this huge problem.
Exactly. And it really shows how important it is to have those clear data quality standards and definitions that we were talking about before, right?
Yeah.
If everyone's speaking a different data language, it's bound to lead to confusion.
For sure. So what did the bank do to fix it? Did they create that single source of truth?
They did. They finally established a data dictionary that clearly defined all the key data elements used in their loan assessment process.
Okay.
They also implemented data quality checks to flag any inconsistencies, you know? And I think maybe most importantly, they actually provided training to all the relevant staff.
Oh, good.
To make sure everyone understood those new data standards and how to use them consistently.
So they really took a proactive approach to prevent the issue from happening again.
Yeah, exactly. Learn from your mistakes.
Classic.
And, the Deloitte report emphasizes that this bank's experience isn't unique. A lot of organizations struggle with these similar data quality challenges.
So it's not just a one-off problem. This is a systemic thing.
Exactly. It needs to be addressed at the organizational level.
Okay. But let's shift gears for a second, talk about technology.
Okay, yeah.
What role can technology play in helping organizations get a handle on their data?
Well, technology is a game changer when it comes to data governance.
Wow.
It can automate all those manual tasks, provide real-time insights into data quality.
Okay.
And help organizations enforce data policies and standards way more effectively.
Okay, so give me some specifics. What kind of tools are we talking about here?
Well, we already mentioned data lineage tools, which can help organizations trace data back to its source and figure out the root cause of problems.
Yeah.
There are also data quality monitoring tools that can automatically flag potential issues.
Ooh, I like that.
Like missing values, inconsistencies, outliers, all that good stuff.
So instead of relying on those manual checks, which can be really time-consuming, error-prone.
Exactly.
These tools can do the heavy lifting.
Yeah, exactly.
And are there even more sophisticated tools?
Oh, yeah, there are.
Like what?
Well, think about data governance platforms.
Okay.
These provide a centralized hub for managing, all aspects of data governance.
Oh, wow.
From defining data policies and standards to tracking data quality metrics to managing data access requests, the whole 9 yards.
So these tools can really take data governance to a whole new level.
They really can.
That's exciting. But I'm curious, what about organizations that are just starting their data governance journey?
Yeah.
What advice would you give them?
That's a great question. For organizations just starting out, I'd say focus on the basics.
Okay.
Start by, establishing a clear data governance framework, defining key data policies and standards, and assigning clear roles and responsibilities for data management.
So lay a strong foundation first.
Exactly.
Okay, but what about technology? Should they invest in tools right away, or is that something comes later?
Well, tech can be a huge help, but it's not a magic solution, right? It's important to remember that data governance is mostly about people and processes.
Right.
So before jumping into fancy tools, make sure you really understand your data landscape, your data governance needs, and the challenges you're actually trying to solve.
So start with the fundamentals and build from there.
Exactly.
Gotcha. And on that note, I think it's time to bring this deep dive to a close.
Okay.
Any final thoughts?
Well, just remember that data governance is a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
It's a continuous process of improvement and adaptation. So stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged in this ever-changing world of data.
Well said. We've covered so much today, from the importance of data quality and lineage to the role of technology, to the need for a strong data culture.
Yep.
But the biggest takeaway here is that data governance isn't just about, compliance or risk management. It's about building trust, empowering decision-making, and ultimately unlocking the full potential of data to drive positive change.
Absolutely.
And that's something we can all get behind.
Definitely. As we've been talking about data governance, I keep thinking about how much the landscape has changed.
Yeah.
It really wasn't that long ago that this was just like a tech issue, right? Something for the IT department to worry about.
Exactly.
But now data has become like the strategic asset.
It really has.
It's the fuel for everything these days.
Right now.
Understanding customers, developing new products, managing risk, complying with regulations, you name it.
It's crazy.
It is.
And with that, with that importance comes a whole lot more scrutiny.
Oh.
And we're seeing that with these MAS guidelines, right? All the focus on personal accountability.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's not just regulators who are paying attention these days.
Right.
Customers are also a lot more aware of how their data is being used.
They're savvier.
Way savvier. They want transparency.
Yeah.
They want control, which, puts the pressure on organizations to really step up their game.
It's a whole different world.
It is. It's not enough to just talk about data governance anymore,
Right.
Organizations have to walk the walk.
They do.
Invest in the right people, the right processes, the right technologies to really manage data well and responsibly.
So where do we go from here? What's next for data governance? What trends should we be keeping an eye on?
Well, I think we're going to see even more focus on automation and artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because as the volume of data keeps growing and it just gets more and more complex, organizations are going to need ways to automate all those data governance tasks.
Okay. Makes sense.
And really leverage AI to manage data risks more efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing AI being used for things like data quality monitoring and anomaly detection.
Exactly.
So it's exciting to think about how those capabilities will evolve.
Yeah.
But I think we also can't forget about the ethical considerations around data.
Oh, that's a huge one, yeah.
It is.
As organizations collect and use more data, it's crucial to have clear guidelines and principles in place to make sure that data is being used ethically and responsibly.
Totally agree. Data ethics is going to be a central part of the conversation.
It has to be.
Moving forward. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive.
It flew by.
It did.
But hopefully our listeners walked away with a better understanding of what data governance is all about.
Yes, and why it matters no matter what industry you're in.
Exactly. It's been great diving into this with you.
It has. It's been a lot of fun.
And remember, folks, data governance is a journey, not a destination.
It's so true.
So keep learning, keep evolving, and stay curious about this crazy world of data.
Great advice. Yeah. And if you're feeling overwhelmed by all this data talk, don't worry.
It's a lot.
It is. We'll be sharing some more resources in the show notes.
Yes.
Including links to those articles that we discussed and a glossary of key terms.
Maybe even some bonus data puns. Who knows?
You got to keep it fun, right?
Exactly.
Well, until next time, happy data diving, everyone.